So picture this. You're in a meeting for a cause you deeply care about and believe in. And the conversation turns to Israel and Palestine. And suddenly, someone looks directly at you and says, well, as a Jew, what's your take on this genocide? Your heart sinks. This is supposed to be your community. But in this moment, you feel anything but safe. Hi, I'm Rabbi Sandra. And maybe this is an example of an experience you've had in spaces you used to call home or used to feel safe in. And I also want to be clear about something. Anti-Semitism is a persistent hatred of Jews that appears across political spectrum, including progressive spaces. Now, before you think I'm about to trash progressive movements, and if you've been following me for a long time, you know that's not true. But stick with me. This isn't about choosing sides. It's about staying in the work. The most common way that anti-Semitism appears in progressive spaces is through discourse about Israel-Palestine. It's entirely legitimate to critique Israeli policies, to critique the Israeli government, but it crosses into anti-Semitism when it holds all Jews collectively responsible for Israeli actions. When someone singles out the Jew in the room and assumes they speak for Israel, or when Jewish participation becomes conditional on denouncing a foreign government, in this case Israel, this leaves many Jews feeling isolated in movements they otherwise support. Some have walked away entirely, and others have chosen to stay. And I'm going to tell you why I think you should stay. You should stay because we as Jews believe that our liberation is bound up with everyone else's liberation. And if you believe that, like I do, which also is like I said, a Jewish value, walking away doesn't make the anti-Semitism disappear. It means that fewer Jewish voices are there to call it out. But here's the thing, we must also be honest about a broader picture. Right-wing anti-Semitism poses the most dangerous and violent threat to Jewish lives, leading to synagogue shootings, deadly attacks, and remember a few years ago, those white men and their tiki torches in Charlottesville shouting, "Jews will not replace us." We can't let fighting anti-Semitism become a partisan tool. Understanding this broader context matters because one of the reasons we see disproportionate focus on anti-Semitism in progressive spaces today is that it serves a right-wing agenda. By spotlighting anti-Semitism within Jewish spaces where many participants belong to other marginalized groups, the right is able to sow distrust and fracture solidarity. This tactic diverts attention away from the often more violent systemic forms of anti-Semitism that emerge from the right and undermines the shared work of coalition building. And we need to be honest about something else. As we challenge anti-Semitism, we must also confront racism, particularly anti-Black racism that persists within our own Jewish communities. This racism fuels a disproportionate focus on anti-Semitism from progressive spaces, while obscuring the harm white Jewish folks sometimes inflict. Even as many in the Jewish community expect unconditional solidarity from other marginalized groups, particularly Black folks. I've seen this for years. Many white-presenting Jews continue to believe that Black folks are somehow more anti-Semitic and dangerous than white folks when there's absolutely nothing that supports that. I've been in Jewish spaces where people will spend hours talking about anti-Semitism on college campuses, but won't address racism that exists in Jewish spaces. Racism that also harms Jews who are Black and brown. Or the fact that their own synagogue, which might be in a predominantly Black neighborhood, they've never partnered with local Black churches or Black churches anywhere. Confronting anti-Semitism cannot be separated from confronting racism within our own communal structures. Our commitment to justice demands that we hold ourselves accountable and name how whiteness operates in Jewish spaces. And we can't do this work by ourselves. As Jews, we are uniquely positioned to challenge anti-Semitism and progressive movements while standing firm against right-wing hatred. We can hold our movements accountable without abandoning them. This is what solidarity actually looks like. Not competing for who has it worse, but building trust across difference. And when we challenge anti-Semitism while confronting our own complicity and racism. We're modeling the mutual accountability that real coalition work requires. So I'm talking about staying in the room, staying in the conversations. What does that actually mean? It means speaking up, building relationships before you need them, finding other Jews in our movements, in these movements, and supporting each other, and educating our allies about what anti-Semitism looks like. Let me go back to the opening scenario. And here's how it could go differently. Imagine you're with your fellow organizers or activists, and someone asks that question. And now, since this group has been educated on anti-Semitism, someone can stand up and say, hey, that's not fair. Let's go back to the work that we should be doing. That's what it can look like when movements take anti-Semitism seriously. This work is hard, and some days you might be wondering, or some days you might be thinking it's easier to just stay in Jewish spaces. But my values as a Jew call me to pursue justice, call me to prepare the world. And the world that I want to live in requires all of us to do this work together. So stay in the room, do the work, and we hold ourselves and our movements accountable. And we can keep building toward the world where liberation for one truly is bound up in liberation for us all. I'm Rabbi Sandra. Thank you so much for listening. I also wrote about this in a Substack post. I'll tag it here. And until next time, keep building bridges, my friends.